Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And welcome to the Center of Universal Light. Wow, what a week for me. You know, it seems like when I return to Cottonwood from the road and doing concert tours that things really get intense. The energy of this place is really intense. CUL is an independent spiritual healing center. And if you're new or for the first time here, I want you to know that we're a non-denominational organization, and we do not follow one spiritual text or religious dogma. Let's turn my mic down another notch. It's still a little hot here. There you go. We're an eclectic and universal, and we draw truth from many different spiritual and wisdom sources, including science and psychology. Indigenous, North and South American wisdom and practices, as well as Eastern beliefs and philosophies. There is no one source of truth, because each of us carry within us the entire truth of the universe. As your minister, I am here to lead by example with loving, vulnerable leadership. The best leaders recognize that showing their vulnerable side is a sign of courage and strength. Therefore, I will not ever preach to you. Amen. So help me if I ever do, because that will mean I'm through at the pulpit. I will only speak to what is alive in me at the moment and what I know to be true for me as it resonates with the altar of my heart. My prayer will always be the hope that something that I say or do may awaken in you the possibility of a healing, expanding consciousness, and spiritual growth that will lead to your enlightenment. As such, before we proceed with our ceremony today, I would like to say this week has been all about lessons in trust for me. Trusting myself, trusting my friends, and trusting in the process of creation. It is true from my experience that all relationships are built on trust. And trust starts and is reflected back to us by how well we have built a trusting relationship with ourselves, with our inner child, with our inner guidance, with the voice of God, with the voice of the soul who hath sent us. The strength of our lives, our relationships, our community, our nation, and the world depends on how well we trust ourselves. If you're finding it hard to trust people, then ask yourself, does my inner child, the source of my creativity, my imagination, my inspiration, and guidance, trust me? That's the ego-driven personality. It doesn't trust me, that ego-driven personality. Because if it doesn't, that persona that we call our ego self has hurt and abused ourselves, the inner child, to the point that we cannot trust ourselves, and our lives will be a continuous procession of circumstances that give us issues in trust. Trust with other people. Trust with our inner psyche as it continues to work to restore the balance of self-trust and self-love. Before we stand to sing our opening song, You Are My Vision, let us begin this morning with a simple prayer. Breathe deeply and close your eyes. Bring the lights down. Creator of all that is, it is commanded by our collective consciousness here that a healing begin for each and every one of us here this morning. Healing in self-forgiveness, self-love, self-nurturing, so that we can feel and experience the unconditional love of the soul who hath sent us, so that we can feel source energy of oneness and non-dualism, a unity with all that is. We call to the four directions to bring guidance and protection. We activate the 5 pillars of light within our building to bring angels and ascended masters for guidance and transformation. We call to the dolphin spirit energy and to the whale medicine animals for their healing, love, and protection. And we welcome all good spirits of the four directions to our dome of safety and security here in this sanctified sanctuary. And we do this with faith, hope, and belief in the sacred circle of eternal life and resurrection. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Amen and aho. Now please rise and let's sing together, You Are My Vision. Loving one another. Let's bring the lights up just a little bit more. Because I want to especially welcome Rabbi Bernie, who's here today. Here's my wife Wendy and their son Ashton. I attended Rabbi Bernie's workshop yesterday on cosmic Judaism. And I am thrilled to learn how close our principles here are aligned with his forward-thinking concepts of Judaism. It was a great workshop.
Thanks for being there.
And he gifted me this book. I can't read Hebrew yet. What's the title, Rabbi Bernie?
It's called Hanishama, which means all soul.
House of Soul.
All. Like all soul.
All soul.
Yeah, all soul. Hanishama.
It's an interesting book because it starts in the back and goes forward. I'm really looking forward to this.
Or backward.
Looking forward.
I'm forward or backwards. And I got a couple other books this morning too, just from people. The soul would have no rainbow if the eyes had no tears, and other Native American proverbs. And I'm going to use this book this morning because I just leafed through it and found something that's perfect. And then of course, this well-used book of Judaism, 10 Best Ideas. So I'll read this on the flight home tomorrow. I hate to be leaving so soon, but Kim is already out in Kentucky, and I'll talk more about that later. But in honor of Rabbi Bernie, I'm going to lead us into meditation with a Jewish prayer for peace. From peace in the midst. Interfaith prayers for peace. Dear Lord, grant me the grace of wonder. Surprise me, amaze me, awe me in every crevice of your universe. Each day, enrapture me with your marvelous things without number. I do not ask to see the reason for it all. I only ask to share the wonder of it all. Grant me peace, your most precious gift, and give me the will to proclaim its message to all people of the earth. Although differences in thought and belief divide us, let the love of truth and the pursuit of holiness unite me with all life. Strengthen the bonds of friendship among the inhabitants of all lands, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. May the one who makes peace in the heavens make peace for us all. Let's take these words and these feelings into the silence now. Now, coming up a week from this Thursday is the annual cleaning of the chapel. We need 6 volunteers to come to the chapel at 10 a.m. on Thursday, September 28th, to assist William Eaton in cleaning the chapel for 1 hour. That's all we're asking, 1 hour. And he's asking for help in cleaning the windows and the chairs. He's going to be doing the dirty work. But please sign up in the back. We have Sandy Stokes in the back. Wave your hand, Sandy. She's back there at the volunteers table, and she's got a list for you to sign up. She'll be helping us, helping out Velda while Velda's out of town. Well, Kim and I will be in Arkansas that week, attending my daughter's wedding. This young bird was reluctant to fly, choosing to take her time and build her confidence to fly in her own direction. She's 36, entering her first marriage as an only child, marrying another only child. Yeah. Now she's flying, singing, and soaring into life with her own women's accessory clothing line there at the bottom that she has come up with using discarded fabric from fashion houses in LA. She calls it Regenerous Designs, and it's eco-friendly. She's making all of the bridesmaids' dresses. She's making all of the bridegrooms' bow ties. She's awesome. Here's 3 new dates I want you to put in your calendar. October 13th, Kimberly and I will be in concert at the Hub in Sedona with special guest Kalia. And December 9th, Christmas potluck dinner and CUL talent show at Pine Shadows. From 2 to 6 p.m. We're going to draft Ken Reynolds to be our MC. And we want everybody here that if you play a guitar and sing, or you play the piano, or you tell jokes, or do cartwheels, tap dance, or play the spoons, we want you to sign up for our talent show. And let's have a lot of fun. And I'm hoping that the Hearts of Space Choir, did I get that wrong?
Voices of the Heart Choir.
What is it?
Voices of the Heart.
Voices of the Heart, not Hearts of Space. Voices of the Heart. I'm the spacey one. We got to get them to sing. So you got.
Oh my goodness.
So that's Saturday from 2 to 6 on the 9th. So December 16th, the following Saturday, is going to be a benefit concert for our Center of Universal Light right here at OTCA with special guest William Eaton, once again Kalia, Kimberly, and other special guests. So put those down on your calendars. I want to have a special visit from her son and daughter-in-law, Bruce and Jennifer Kellogg, who are driving down from Vancouver, BC. So make sure you're here on October 1st to hear Reverend Bruce give us an update on his new adventure. There is someone else, though, here today that is celebrating her 87th birthday, and that's our very own White Wolf. We're sure happy that you're here today with us.
Love is but the song we sing, and fear's the way we die. You can make the mountains rain, or hear the angels cry. On the wing, you will not know why. Come on, people now, smile. Some will come and some will go, and we will surely pass. When the one who left us here returns for us at last, we are but a moment's sunlight fading on the grass. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together and love one another right now. If you hear the song I sing, then you will understand. You hold the key to love and fear, all in your trembling hand. One key unlocks them both, you know, it's there at your command. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, love one another right now. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, love one another right now.
We're going to go deep this morning. Are you ready to go deep?
Yes.
Do you want to expand your consciousness?
Yes.
Do you want to have greater awareness?
Yes.
Do you want to change the world?
Yes.
Do you want to love yourself more?
Yes.
Do you want a more loving community to live in?
Yes.
Do you want to see the people of the world change from greed to an all-inclusive, caring network?
Yes.
Then you must clear your shadow. This is what I'm talking about here today at Center of Universal Light. If we are to hold a vision of a new world, a holistic world vision, then we must start inside each of us and do the inner work to bring about a holistic inner vision. Otherwise, we're just faking it. And we'll see no change because we're not changing ourselves. This is a subject that of Jungian, is that how you say it? Jungian psychology. That might be taught or addressed in a counseling session or a workshop, but I feel that this gathering is ready, as spiritual warriors, which I know you are, to embrace this work and get on with the destiny that I spoke about last week. First of all, is there anyone here who has attained enlightenment? Besides Nanda Kellogg, of course. She's too humble to admit that publicly. But if you are enlightened, then you are dismissed. You can go get coffee and donuts. Meet us afterwards to the because the enlightened ones are the only ones who do not have shadows. The rest of us all have shadows, so just accept that and let's get to work. The shadow is that part of a person that is hidden, repressed, and denied. And also, that we are often too embarrassed or too ashamed to admit it's there. Professor Young would identify it as part of our psyche that lives in shadow, and when illuminated, makes us aware of what's going on in our unconscious minds. Here's an example. Have you ever heard somebody say, I feel like things are never going to get any better. I've just got to be satisfied with what I've got. They've just identified the hopeless shadow. And when it's stated, when you see it, you know it's a lie. What is shadow work? It's a path of personal development and improvement and healing old wounds. Embracing and loving parts of ourselves that we would be afraid to express. It's a way of expressing ourselves in a way that honors ourselves and others. Shadows are there to show us parts of ourselves that need to be healed and parts of ourselves that need to be loved and expressed in a productive and respectful way. Shadows are limiting beliefs and fears we carry around with us. A shadow can also be something that's enriching, but we're too afraid to express it. Like if you say you want to, you would love to play music, but someone important in your life once told you, you don't have any talent. You have no business being next to a piano. And so you've suppressed that desire in yourself to express yourself through music. So we've got two kinds of shadows. One that is not naturally enriching, like anger, and one that is enriching, but you're not allowing yourself to experience it because you're afraid of it, or because you don't believe it, or because it might hurt you. How do we work on shadows? How do I work on shadows? Let me tell you that first. I work on shadows. I figure out what scares me. What makes me feel small, unworthy, abandoned, frustrated, and angry. These are my triggers. And so when I feel this way, I ask myself the questions, what triggered me? What did someone say or do that triggered me? Or, I was triggered because this happened. Now, why did that trigger me? Because this happened, I got triggered. And now I begin to work down, down, down to the root cause. The first experience. The moment when I decided that I was not lovable. Okay, here's a personal example. Why am I triggered by all these distractions when I'm giving a message or playing music? Because I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my concentration and get lost and say something stupid or mess up. That's why. Well, why am I afraid that I'm going to say something stupid and mess up? Because although I'm speaking about something that resonates as my truth, sometimes I'm using someone else's words to say them and not my own. Well, why am I using someone else's words to say them? Because this is all new to me. And I don't want to stutter and stammer around looking for the right words to say when some perfectly good words are right there to be used. Well, why are you afraid to stutter and stammer around? Because I think I'm going to look stupid and people will be uninspired and think badly of me and go away and never come back, and they'll know that I don't know squat. They'll think I'm a fake and a phony. Well, why don't you want people to think that you're a fake and a phony? Because I want people to like me and love me. Well, why do I want people to like and love me? Because I am nothing if people don't like and love me. And that's my shadow. That's the lie. So what do? I work on loving myself. Just the way I am. With what I've got to work with. By loving my inadequacies, my vulnerabilities, then I comfort little Arvel, my inner child. And I reassure him that I will always love him. Even if no one else in the whole world doesn't like or love me, I will love little Arvel. That it's okay. I tell him the opposite of that lie. I tell him that he is lovable, but he is likable, just the way he is. And that's okay with me. And that's shadow work. Shadow work is not, quote, I hate those people that are coughing and talking and walking around and making noise and distracting me. But hey, that's just the way I am. Like it or lump it, you know. It's my way or the highway. I'm just a dark person. I embrace my dark side. Unquote. That's not shadow work. That's just utter laziness. Now, sometimes I will be blunt because it may be honest and beneficial. In other words, I'm saying what needs to be said sometimes. And it's not me being blunt because I'm saying that I'm a blunt person. That's an excuse. It's just an excuse to be rude and insensitive. You're either rude and insensitive, or you're not rude and insensitive. And you choose to be either one. There's a difference between being honest and communicating the truth about a hard message and being able to do it from your heart and a place of love. Or doing it from a place of ego, a place of, I'm right and I'm holier than thou. The shadow is part of Jungian psychology model, of the model. And this is where all of our repressed traits go. Anything the ego doesn't want to associate with itself goes in the shadow. Most believe that the shadow is composed of only negative traits that we've repressed about ourselves. Like, I used to be greedy, but now I'm not. But look at all those greedy people. So now we're just projecting that trait on other people. But the shadow can also have positive traits. For example, if you grew up in a family that was very pragmatic and very left-brain oriented, but you were a very creative person, you might repress your creativity, and that would be in the shadow. All of this is going to depend on how open you are to be willing to admit that you have a shadow. The less your ego is willing to identify with traits that you don't want to be associated with, the denser your shadow will become. And this is going to cause a problem. Because then your shadow is going to have autonomous control over your actions. It's going to create your reality from your subconscious mind. So the denser your shadow is, the lower your consciousness is going to be, because what you're doing is not putting these traits in a deep dark hole or a place like that. What you're actually doing is dimming the light of your consciousness so that you don't have to see those unfavorable attributes of yourself. Think of it as a lamp, and you keep dimming down the dimmer every time you want to repress a trait. And you're saying, oh, I don't want to be associated with that, so I'm going to put my blinders on and ignore it. And pretty soon your consciousness and your awareness is this small. It's like having blinders on. That's low consciousness. That's lack of awareness. So it's necessary to reintegrate those traits and become more conscious of those traits that we suppress down. Those are the things that will cause low consciousness behavior. Our low consciousness mindsets equal out to just bad results in life. So the more we can be aware of our shadow, the shadow material, and the more we can shine the light on it, then the less shadow there's going to be weighing us down. What are some of the symptoms of having a large and bulbous shadow? Well, one of the symptoms is, like I said, lack of awareness. Because the shadow consists of material that the ego does not want to be associated with itself, when it starts to bubble up, we become aware of the many ways that we've been lying to ourselves. Another symptom is that it insulates us from feeling strong emotions, including love, bliss, and ecstasy, some of the best emotions in life. Because when we start repressing parts of ourselves, then we start to build this wall around us, and it walls off all of the emotions. When we tell ourselves that we don't want that trait, we disown parts of ourselves, we fragment ourselves. So think of yourself as a child that really needs love. If you have a high degree of self-hatred and really don't like yourself, it's probably because you have a very dense shadow. And because you've cut yourself off from yourself and betrayed yourself. So it's important to reintegrate those traits that you feel might be negative. The shadow is only trying to bring balance back into our lives. So when our ego suppresses a trait, the shadow begins to bring it back up in order to reintegrate it. And we keep pushing it down, and it keeps coming back up, and we keep pushing it down, and it keeps coming back up, and it never goes away. If you have a very dense shadow, you will have a tendency to project things onto others. You might see this with people who are very dogmatic. For example, now I'm going to talk about something right now that's a very sensitive subject. But I'm going to shine the light on sexual repression because it's a huge problem for us and societies that we live in and around the world. We might find that someone who has a sexual repression might judge other people for engaging in various kinds of sexual activity that they disagree with in a very, very strong way. At some level, they have repressed that part of themselves. So they are projecting that part of themselves onto other people. The reason why this happens is so that the psyche can reintegrate it, hoping that we can see that trait in someone else and love and accept them. Then we can love and accept that trait in ourselves. The lack of awareness contributes to the old paradigm of, oh, I can see the splinter in your eye, but I can't see the log in my own. We can spot the flaws in other people's lives quickly and then seemingly be oblivious to it in ourselves. And likewise, other people, they will see the same thing in you because they see your shadow things. And you think you've got everything covered, hidden away, believing that you've got everything handled and you don't have any issues. But the places where you have issues are the places where you have blind spots. And that's caused by having a shadow. Another thing is being out of touch with reality. This is learning to disassociate ourselves from what is and not really accepting the present moment. This could result in daydreams or thoughts of the past or the future, as well as coming up with insights or ideas or various creative projects, anything that can, keep us from thinking about or seeing the traits in ourselves that we don't want to see. You could, if something like that comes up, we could say to them, well, that's interesting. Or as they say in the South, now that's different. So you tend to be a space cadet when you've got all your energy put on hiding the shadow. Another thing is the repression of our natural talents. This is the way that the shadow material can be positive. For example, let's say that there's a Victorian woman here who naturally had a lot of talent and hopes and desires, and dreams about doing worldly things. But in that time, women were frowned upon for doing those kinds of things and were expected to be in the home. So she could be authentic with herself and risk being scorned and ostracized and not fitting into society, or she could conform to society's norm and repress herself and her natural talents so she could fit into the place that society told her she belonged. The choice that is healthier for a person is the one that enables a person to go out and do what's natural for them. The thing about the shadow is that it really wants to be reintegrated. So the shadow will put you in different situations where you have to look at the shadow traits that you want to keep repressed. This is why we tend to attract the same kind of mate no matter what, even if those kinds of people are really bad for us. Because it's our shadow's way of trying to get us to reintegrate the traits. It will keep putting you in the same situation over and over again and using our emotions to get us there in order to reintegrate. If a person has trouble or difficulty finding or maintaining healthy relationships, it relates directly back to the shadow. Now, we're all familiar with the law of attraction, right? Like attracts like. Whatever is in our shadow is going to be attracted to us. Same thing. We will attract to ourselves whatever is in the shadow. A lot of times, the law of attraction is saying we can attract abundance. But what we really want is happiness and joy. And the only way to get that is to reintegrate the shadow. So the shadow attracts to us whatever is going to help us grow the most. And sometimes that isn't exactly the most or the nicest situations in life. You might be asking now, how do I get rid of the shadow? How do I get rid of all these traits out of the shadow, and how do I accept them back in? Well, the good/bad news is that we can't get rid of the shadow. Because again, that's another repression. In fact, it's a whole nother layer of repression, deny that you have one. All we can do as spiritual warriors is do the work. That is what is meant by being a spiritual warrior. Every time we suppress or project a trait that we feel uncomfortable with, that's just utter laziness. A spiritual warrior goes after it, digging down to the lie where we're telling ourselves, and we're telling ourselves that when we get down there, we find the lie, then we tell ourselves the truth. The opposite of who we are, and we love that. Loving ourselves. This is what self-love looks like. Looking for the triggers. We know what traits, you look for the triggers to know what traits you have repressed in yourself. Then work towards really loving those traits in yourself and reintegrating them. Making judgments is a great indicator about where your shadow is. Seeing what judgments you cast on other people or you cast on yourself. So now I want to take these traits and reintegrate them. And express them in ways that are most beneficial to me. Even if I notice a negative trait in myself, I do not want to express that negative trait. I don't have to be greedy. I don't have to be greedy in order to reintegrate that trait. There's no problem with self-preservation as long as we have it balanced with preservation for all. Even if you can't find a positive expression for these negative traits, it's not necessary to express these traits. You just have to become aware of them and accept them and love that part of yourself. Don't judge them as wrong in yourself, and don't judge them as wrong in other people. You want to be able to look at a trait as neutrally as possible. Look at your internal emotions and urges as though you were looking at a thunderstorm or something else occurring naturally, a natural phenomenon in nature. Because these traits occur naturally in us. Essentially, we don't have any control over our internal state. All of those things just come up in the way they happen to come up. Just as things in the external world just happen to come up. This is the same message that I was giving weeks ago with Matt Kahn when I quoted him as saying, whatever arises, love that. So don't blame yourself if something negative comes up. Just look at it neutrally. Just become aware of it. Just say, well, that's interesting. Well, that's different. With this awareness, with this acceptance of what is your internal reality, then that will be enough to reintegrate the trait. It's not necessary to express it in order to reintegrate it. If you're going to reintegrate it and not repress a trait, then you're going to want to notice it and not judge it as bad. So the shadow comes about from internal judgments and external judgments that we make. Really, the judgment is towards ourselves because we have defined them in a certain way. You might have thought, well, I'm a really pure person, and I can't have that happen because then I'll be just like all these other people that I judge to be wrong and bad people. It's just a matter of recognizing that I felt that way. I had that self-knowledge, and it's okay. It's here. Right now is not the opportunity or the appropriate time to express it. You have your ego, which is the main center of your personality and your primary self-concept. And anything you don't want to associate with that self-concept winds up in the shadow. So the shadow is home to all the traits we don't want to see in ourselves. Now, what I want you to take away from this morning is that we are all evolving towards our own enlightenment. We have a shadow that is naturally occurring, that is home to all the traits that we don't want to see in ourselves and we don't want to love about ourselves. They show themselves to us whenever we judge ourselves or others. Instead of repressing them, acknowledge what you're naturally feeling and love that part of yourself. Then choose whether or not to express that trait based on whether it will create positive or negative results in your life. This will expand your awareness, increase your consciousness, bring you more joy and love into your life, the community, and the planet. That's how we change the world. One shadow at a time. In peace, love for self, the community, and the planet, I'm Reverend Arvel.